about Jack Kirby?
Yeah.
My name's Mark Kivanier. Like, you need to be told that. It's a Jack Kirby panel. Who else would it be? And this is Mr. Mike Royer. This is Mr. Jim Amish. This is Mr. Rand Hoppy. Now, for those of you who don't know who any of us are, Mike was Jack Kirby's inker from about 1972
In print,
in print.
but from the late 68.
Well, you did so many meetings, basically, and you took over regularly. And you.
We're going to start arguing.
Okay, that's right. Anyway, he came my Jack stuff for a long time. He did an amazing job with it. There are people who still thank me for my role in salvaging Jack Kirby's pencils from the person who would have inked them if Mike had not been available. And he did an amazing amount of work. And as we didn't hear the panel earlier we were on, it was not just a matter of the fact that he did it well. That would have been enough. In this business, doing it well is a great thing. But he was the most reliable person we could have asked for. Mike has missed in his life 0 deadlines on anything. Did you ever leave anything for anybody?
No.
All right. And that's not just bragging. I worked for a man named Chase Craig for years, who was the editor at Gold Key Western Publishing Company, all the Dell, later Dell, and then Gold Key Comics, the Disney Comics, and the Warner Brothers Comics. And I asked him one time, you know, if you had to bet your life on some freelancer turning in the work on time, who would you bet on? He said 2 people, Dan Spiegel and Mike Royer. And I said, that's it. And I learned a lot from Mike about needing deadlines.
I got a mortgage from Bank of America on the strength of a letter from Chase Craig at Western Publishing. He said, we set our clocks by Mike Royer if we could only get more work out of him. So they were convinced I could make the payments.
Yes. And that was important because when Jack was doing The New Gods and those books for DC, there was a rooting interest against him in New York, not because they had it against him personally, but they didn't like the idea of someone working for the editor in California as opposed to the office in New York. They didn't like the idea that Jack had picked his own inker and they hadn't picked the person. And they just liked the idea that the company created the books. And so when Mike took over, they were just waiting for him to fail. Waiting for him to be able to say, no, gee, we gotta get around Royer guy. He can't meet a deadline. His work's lousy, and they made sure they weren't able to say that. And Jack was very, very happy to have his work, and we were very happy to have Mike in his work also. And Jim Amish is another inker person. He's done a lot of comics for Archie and other places, and he is a historian, and he's a friend of mine. He's a friend of the Kirbys. And I just wanted him on the panel because I don't get to see Jim enough because he doesn't come to Comic-Con. This is my excuse to see my friend Jim. And he's got lots of stuff to say. And this man, Rand Hoppy, he operates the Jack Kirby Research, what's it
Museum
called?
and Research Center.
I never get the name of this place right. The Research Center, which is doing Herculean work to catalog Jack's work, to get copies of it. Have you scanned anything interesting at the convention here?
We've scanned 2 pages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a Commandy page, and I can't remember the second one, but you know.
Anyway, and so they are building a library of great scans of Jack's work, and that's a wonderful thing that we all feel charged with the idea of spreading the word of Jack. That as long as I'm able to read, I will be telling people about this wonderful man who was in my life for not enough years. I have met a lot of incredible people. I work a lot in TV and Hollywood stuff. I've met incredible people. I've met brilliantly talented people. I worked with Sid Caesar. So I worked with Bob Newhart. Jack Kirby is the most amazing, talented person I ever met in my life. And as I get older and older, the more I really come to appreciate the privilege it was to be around Jack and to just sit with him and talk about anything, not even about comics. It was fascinating talking to him about. What are some of the things you and Jack talked about besides comics?
Well, people ask me what it was like inking Jack's pages, and I can't remember the nuts and bolts. I had to do 3 pages a day, letter a whole book in less than 2 days, as well as rule of orders, and have 3 pages of display lettering. What I remember is sitting in the kitchen with Jack and Roz, eating homemade chocolate cake and drinking milk and talking about Warner Brothers movies.
And Jack liked Warner Brothers movies.
Well,
Jack kind of was a Warner Brothers movie.
Well, people have asked me, if you don't mind me saying this, Mark, people have asked me, what's the basic difference between Joe Sinnott and Mike Royer? And I love Joe Sinnott. Since the first work I ever saw was when I was a kid in the Free Buster Brown comic books. And if you're familiar with the dichotomy of the movie studio system in the Golden Age, Joe Sinnott inked Jack Kirby, MGM. I inked Jack Kirby, Warner Brothers.
It's a good analogy. One of the interesting things about Jack and inkers, since we're talking about inkers here, when I first met Jack, which was in July of 1969, I naturally asked him about who your favorite inker was. And I assumed he would say Joe Sinnott or Frank Giacoia, who I thought were the 2 best guys who inked them at that point. And Jack said, everybody's good. And he really basically, we actually had a small argument about this. I mean, I didn't argue with Jack, difference of opinion. He thought any inker was fine, any professional inker could do the job. Because the thing that interested Jack about the job was telling an exciting story. And he didn't think even a bad inker, what I would consider a bad inker, ruined the story. And he also came out of a tradition where, the other guy's got to make a living. He was an Depression era kid, and everyone was very conscious of everyone's need to make a living. And if this guy, if George Roussos was inking him at that point, fine. Nice that George has the job, and his work was fine, whoever it was. He'd only asked ever at Marvel for them to replace one inker, and he asked very politely, like, not demanding this, just could you maybe put him on some of the books, and that was Dan Adkins, a couple of Captain Americas. So when he took on Mike, initially, the reason he wanted Mike had a lot to do with geography. He wanted someone who would work for him, because Jack would write a book, would draw a book, send it off to New York, and never see it again. He was ostensibly the editor. But somebody would letter it there, and then go to Vince Coletta to ink. And then Coletta would hand it to the DC production department. A man named Nelson Bridwell would erase the pages, the pencil off them. And if Nelson said to Vince Coletta, gee, you left out the backgrounds here, shouldn't you put those in? Vince would say no. And Nelson had no authority to overrule him because the people in the production were fine with it. And Jack was not happy with Coletta for a number of reasons, and they didn't necessarily relate to what was on the page. They had to also show the workaround at Marvel. Jack didn't want people at Marvel to see what he was doing. So he had a meeting with Coletta, and they had some sort of argument that I heard Jack's version of it because I never heard Coletta's version of it. I don't know exactly what was said, but at the end of that meeting, Jack stormed into Carmichael's office and said, I want my own inker. I want my own guy who works for me in LA. And I want this guy, Mike Royer, who you initially rejected. Mike was up there trying to get some work, and they wanted their guy.
I had lunch with Dick Giordano once the year that we all went back. Stephen, you and I went back to New York.
That was 1970.
In 1970, and I went into Infantino's office and I said, I should be inking Jack. I'm better than Coletta. And at lunch, Dick Giordano says, Mike, you're getting a reputation of being cocky. He says, you said the truth, but.
Anyway, so they gave gin to Jack, figuring, well, maybe Jack will learn a lesson and he'll stop complaining about our production department. DC's production department did not like Jack. Jack did not like their coloring. And he made the mistake of telling them that he thought the coloring of the Marvel books was better than the coloring of the DC books. That was like sacrilegious back then, and they really had it in for him. So they said, you know, okay, we'll give Jack his inker, and, you know, his inker will fail. He'll either do a lousy job of it, or he won't get the books done in time, and then we can yank it back, give it back to Coletta or whoever we want. And Mike, unfortunately, didn't fail. He not only met every single damn deadline, which was very difficult, he did a very excellent job. Joe Sinan, I mentioned this earlier, Joe Sinan and Frank Giacoya both told me they were impressed with Mike's thinking and could not believe that he did it all by himself. And neither one of them could have done the job just in terms of time restraints. They could not have, neither of them could let him. But to get that number of pages done, essentially like 3 a day, on a steady basis, and it's Jack Kirby work. It's not the easiest guy in the world to ink because he puts a lot of stuff in the pages. Everybody was impressed, and Mike, you know, was a hero for that. Now, the thing I wanted to mention, I don't know if I ever said this to Mike before, is that Mike was the first time Jack ever really appreciated an inker. He stopped saying, when he had Mike, he stopped saying, well, anybody can ink the books. Because he recognized, because he didn't look at the printed books or even the inked versions at Marvel very much. He didn't hold Joe Sinan's ink pages in his hand and look through them. He held Mike's pages in his hand. Mike delivered the pages to Jack. And Jack would look at them and be the editor. He might, you know, indicate for something to be changed on a letter. Mike occasionally spelled the letter wrong, something like that, you know, as they all do. But Mike was not only Jack's favorite inker, he was his first favorite inker. And which is not to take anything away from Joe Sinan or Frank Giacoya, those guys. He loved them too. And if they lived next door to him, you wouldn't have had that job.
Right.
You know.
Well, the only original art that Jack ever gave me, because basically from the beginning it was understood that he kept it all. And he gave me a few pages from the Captain America and a couple other things. And I did not want to collect Jack Kirby ink by me. I wanted some pages by Giacoya or Sinan. So I gave the pages, a handful of pages he gave me, away to friends. Of course, now I would kill to have them back. But I didn't collect, in essence, my work with another pencil, or with a pencil.
Yeah. Anyway, and I think Jack came to appreciate his other inkers a lot more because of Mike. You know, he stopped saying anybody can ink this stuff. He stopped saying, he was aware that Mike was bringing something to the party that somebody else might not be able to supply. Quick aside here, at one point when I was trying to convince Jack, you know, inkers matter, I mentioned that one of my favorite inkers in his work was Bill Everett on Thor. And Jack said, Bill Everett never inked Thor. I said, yeah, Bill Everett inked Thor like, a year or so. Oh, he did. Well, Jack had a big box of old DC Marvel comics there. I said, 1 minute, I rummaged around, and there was an issue of Thor that Bill Everett did, and I showed it to Jack. And it's how little Jack looked at the printed books. He goes, what's Bill Everett doing inking me? Bill Everett should be drawing his own comics. And he thought the work was excellent. He just didn't understand why Bill Everett, who he thought was one of the great comic book artists of all time, would waste his time inking somebody else. He felt that way about Wally Wood at times. Why is Wally Wood inking somebody else? Because Jack Kirby's not going to go around inking somebody else. Anyway, the point is that Mike did this wonderful thing that helped Jack out in a way that was very meaningful. You and I, Mike, oh God, thank you, Mike, for inking all these comics. You did such a great job. Fine. But to Jack, the wonderful thing that Mike did for him was he made Jack right. He didn't make, Jack didn't have to listen to the guys at DC saying, he told you so. And also, he made him realize that Joe Sinan was pretty damn good, and that Frank Giacoya was pretty damn. I mean, Frank was a friend of his, so he was inking it for that reason. But there was another reason, because Frank Giacoya was an excellent inker. He did some of the best inking ever on Jack. Anyway, so that's all I'm going to gush about Mike about. So anyway, now Jim Amish, let's talk about to Jim a bit. Tell these people where you met Jack.
Well, I actually met him on the phone first. I was 17 years old, in my first week of college, and I met two friends of mine, I'm still friends with all these years later, and we started talking about what we liked. They said, "What'd you like?" And I said, "I like Jack Kirby." They both knew who Jack Kirby was, and so we got an idea. Jack's birthday was in August, so I got his phone number. That night we called several people. So we talked to Ray Bradbury, we talked to Isaac Asimov, we talked to Frederick Dane, who was Ellery Queen. That was my idea, so I was Ellery Queen fan, and Jack Kirby. So Roz answered the phone like she always answered the phone. I said, "I'm a 17-year-old, freshman in college. I'd like to wish Mr. Kirby a happy birthday." She said, "Wait a moment." And I heard her go, "Oh, Jack, there's some guy from North Carolina that wants to talk to you." And Jack got on the phone, talked to me like he knew me all his life, 9 minutes. Cost me 73 cents, great investment. I still keep the bill, by the way. And I asked him a few questions that normal things that anybody would ask, I guess. And then he said, "Well, I enjoyed talking to you." And he said, Jack said, "Well, call me again sometime." So I started calling him. And that was in August of '78. And then a few years later, I was running a comic book shop, and we were putting on a convention once a year. So in '85, I said, let's ask Jack. And I think Jack and Roz had just come back from a trip to Israel, and they agreed to come, and it was pretty easy, a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. And then Julie Shorts came, and Julie called him and says, talked to him a little bit. They had already agreed to me at that time. Roz said, "Well, we just have one stipulation, we'd like to have," I think it was like cab fare from their house to the airport. "Oh, no problem." But I was a little nervous. I went to the airport to pick him up because I'd never seen him in person, but surely I knew what it looked like. It was one of those things, when you think you know a person's face. We talked on the phone, dozens and dozens of times over those years. And when I saw him coming up the runway with Roz, before I knew it, I heard me say, "I know Jack Kirby anywhere." It's like the picture had come to life, Jack just smiled. He had never seen a picture of me. He was lucky. And he says, "I know Jim Amish anywhere." And got in the car, and I was taken to the hotel. And Jack sat in the back seat, and Roz sat in the front seat. And I'm on a highway, and every time I looked in the rearview mirror, all I saw was Jack's face. In the city, I'm on trying to check the traffic. And the second time I noticed his face, it occurred to me, if I have an accident and we get killed, I could read the headlines the next day. "Idiot kills King of Comics." All of a sudden, I got a little nervous. One of the times I was ever nervous as far as Jack was concerned. But he couldn't have been nicer. Great guest. I think, he might know better stories, but I'll tell this one because I love this one. We were sitting in the back, it was Jack and Roz, and I was sitting next to Jack, and Julie Shorts was sitting next to me. This guy comes in. He looks around, he sees Jack, comes, at a nice fast pace to back to get some books signed. It was Boy Commandos 1 near mint condition. Red Raven #1, Captain America #1, the Star Spangled Kid comics with the first Newsboy Legion. He had the detective with the first Boy Commandos and Fighting America, a few others, all really nice shape. Jack was very impressed. The guy was telling how much he loved Kirby all these years. Jack signing them and all this. The guy even took a copy of the ad that we put in the Comics Buyer's Guide and put it in the frame. So he gets that signed. And the guys there, a few minutes, he said, "Well, Mr. Kirby, it was great meeting you. I've got to go." Jack said, "Well, you just got here." And he said, "Look, I live in Chicago." And he said, "I could not get time off to come to this convention, so I got a friend of mine to help me drive, do the drive here, because it was 13 hours one way, and I got to go back because I got to go to work." Jack says, "You mean you drove 13 hours, just to be here for 15 minutes?" And the guy says, "Yeah." And of course, all of us mouths dropped, and I thought, that's the power of Kirby. 26-hour round trip, 15 minutes. But you know, I thought Jack was great. I mean, I'm hardly gonna, you know, be impartial. And there's so many funny things about it. He was very accepting of a lot of people. That when some people came to his house and wanted to take him to where the aliens were landing, or taking off, you know. Then there was that one time in the news where they seen the face on Mars. So I called up Jack and said, "Did you see the face on Mars, Jack?" He goes, "I sure did." I said, "So what do you think?" "I think it's real." Of course, it turned out they were not real, but Jack started coming up with this whole theory about how it could have been built. You know, I don't remember all. I wished I had taken that phone call, but he said they were trying to. He thought they were. He said they could have been sending the signal to people on the planet Earth that people were on Mars. And he said anything is possible. Or maybe it was just a signpost so people would know this was a friendly planet. Jack had all these. He got 3 or 4 ideas. I wish I could remember the rest of them, but that was Jack. He was still always thinking, you know. And he was just the nicest guy. First time I stayed in his house was after San Diego Con. And the first night, Julie Schwartz, Greg Dingston, and I were staying the night. Julie was going to the airport the next day back to New York with Dingston. And so I was sleeping in the deck. It was moon bright, so we were top of the mountain. And I'm laying down on this most comfortable couch I think I've ever slept on in my life. And I noticed that there was somebody, there was Jack, and Jack says, "Well, I'm going to leave the light on in the bathroom in case you need to go to the bathroom, you know, in the middle of the night, you want to see your way." Well, I said, the bathroom was just right next to that den. You walk straight across the hall. There it was. I said, "Jack, don't worry about it. I can see the dark, the moon bright." She said, "You sure?" "See, it's not working, all the electricity." He says, "Okay." So I hear him walking down the hall. I close my eyes. About half a minute later, I'm aware that someone's there. It's Jack. And he says, "You know, Jim, I'm going to leave the light on in the bathroom." They said, same old thing. I said, "Jack, don't worry about it, you know." And he said, "You sure?" He said, "Yeah, it's okay." So I hear him walk down the hall. About half a minute or a minute later, there Jack was again saying the exact same thing, the exact same words. I said, "You know, Jack, that's a good idea." He just could not go to sleep until he was absolutely positive that somebody who was staying in his house was going to be fine. And I just thought that was a very admirable thing. Not how many people go to that much effort to do it?
He was a very considerate man, very nice man, very accessible. If you went to the San Diego conventions during those years when he was around, you were willing to wait 15 minutes in line, you could talk to Jack Kirby. And until the very end, he would stand up. If you were standing, he would stand just out of politeness. And also because he was short, like a little closer. But, and he'd talk about anything. You could just go up to Jack and say, "What do you think of, you know, bananas?" And he would talk to you about bananas. I mean, whatever it was. He had everything spawned that idea with him. And you could, one of the things he did that I wish he hadn't done was if you came up to him and said, as some kids did which character did you base Darkseid on? He wouldn't correct you with the dark side. It was Darkseid. But he'd say, "Oh, well, Darkseid is," he didn't want to make you feel dumb. So now, then later his kids would say to me, "Hey, why do you pronounce it Darkseid? I mean, it's Darkseid." Well, "No, it's Darkseid." No, Jack pronounced it Darkseid. And a couple of times he would tell somebody something was true when it wasn't. I mean, he'd not lie, but just try to make a person think, you know, someone would come to Jack, "I have a theory that you based this story on so-and-so," and Jack didn't really base anything on it, for the most part. And he'd say, "Yes, you got it. Yes, you're a sharp guy," you know, and, you know, try to tell the kids that they didn't know that. Now, Rand, you've been museuming Jack for a while now here. I'm fascinated by the kind of reaction you get to people. I discovered that walking around saying I was Jack Kirby's assistant opened doors, not professionally, but just when I was at the Marvel offices in 1970, first time, I was introduced to Bill Everett, and I was like, "Oh, nice to meet you." And somebody said, "Oh, Mark is Jack Kirby's assistant." "Jack Kirby, oh my God," said, "I got to play with Jack." You know, and that's the reaction I got. Steve did come up because Steve is my servant myself, because we were Jack Kirby's assistant. Wally Wood practically put his arms around him. Wally Wood loved Jack and hated Stan. And everybody isn't that good. Well, and to this day, I will have people really, really be impressed that I knew Jack Kirby. People come up to me at conventions now. I've been around long enough. This year is the 50th San Diego Convention. This is my 50th San Diego Convention. There's only 4 of us. And I didn't attend the very first mini-con. Before they started San Diego Conventions, they did this little one-day mini-con thing. And who was the professional guest at that one?
Forrest J. Ackerman and Mike Royer.
Yeah. I've known Mike Royer for 54 years. And,
54, wrong.
But people, they say, is it true that you knew Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera? Is it true that you knew Bob Clampett and Tex Saber? I mean, people like that. I've been fortunate enough to work with people like that. And it just, you know.
Well, I want to say that with many of us, Mark has the reputation, well, somebody say, do you know such and such? I go, no, but ask Mark. Because Mark, you know, Mark, to this day, knows the telephone exchange that we looked up in Penn Station in 1970 to call Al Williamson.
Yeah, Mike was trying to reach Al Williamson, and he didn't have his phone number. So he called directory assistants, and there was a whole bank of phone books there, different regions of New York, there were like 40 phone books or something like that. And the lady said, I can't just look at everyone for Al Williamson. This is before computers. I can't look at Al Williamson in place. Can you narrow down where he would be? And Mike told her as much information as he had about where Al Williamson lived. And she said that would be either in the Milford phone district, the Matamoros phone directory, Gingman's Ferry, or Shahola. And Mike is reading this off to me saying, remember these, Milford, Matamoros, Gingman's Ferry, Shahola. And so then after he got the phone, he went through phone books, looking through Milford, look, here's the Matamoros, like that. And to this day, every time I see Mike, I say, yes, Milford, Matamoros, Gingman's Ferry, Shahola. That was 1970.
Well, earlier this morning, I mentioned something about my telephone, and he rattles off the phone number.
Yeah, I know the phone number Mike Royer had in 1970. Isn't that useful information? Yeah, I just remember lots and lots of things. And you know, Jack did say to me early on in our association, I want you to be my Boswell. And I wasn't sure at that point who Boswell was, but I thought he had him. I knew, yeah. Anyway, and I started trying to remember him. And after I spent a day with Jack, I sometimes go home to write little notes down, little key words. You know, if this will trigger, I'll remember this. And I don't know, I did that first. But no, I don't remember these things because I was very conscious of the fact that Jack was an amazing man. It was a long time learning how amazing he was. Because Jack would say things to me that didn't make any sense at the time, and I'd figure out later what they were. Or he'd make predictions that sounded loony. One of the many reasons Jack did not get his due from Marvel, and didn't get the kind of financial rewards that we all know he deserved, was that the people there had no vision. And Jack would say to me, and I swear this is true, and I have witnesses and people have told me these stories too. He'd say to them, someday there'll be a Thor movie, and it'll be the biggest hit in the history of motion picture. Someday there'll be a fantastic film. He predicted exactly what we have seen happen in the last decade or so with the Marvel characters. You know, in other words, I'm giving you properties that are worth billions. Yeah, Jack. They thought he was demented. People in management at Marvel thought he was out of his mind. Thought he was useful, but that nonsense about the companies being worth, its characters being worth billions of dollars. You crazy? You know, before Star Wars, that was a little less likely to happen with any problem. Star Wars was one of the first franchises that made that kind of money. And Star Wars, we all know, had a lot of Kirby elements in it. So, you can't really get, if you couldn't convince them of the worth of his work, that's why they paid him so badly. Anyway, I am
If
rambling.
he had.
Well, when I was at Disney, Jack called me and asked me if I would have time to ink Silver Star.
And you went to the Copper Penny restaurant.
Yes, we met for lunch at the Copper Penny, which doesn't exist.
Why do I know that?
And we sat there at lunch, and Jack is telling me the story of Silver Star. And I'm thinking, God, this is a lot of material for one issue. No, he had all 7 issues done up here. And I think I did maybe 4 of them before it was just too hard to do Disney full-time and ink with Jack again. But this is a man who, Mark can tell you the story about creating a whole first issue of a new series at dinner. And he was always creating, which is why Roz always drove. And I told my wife one day, I said, "Hon, Roz is always driving for Jack." And she said, "Yeah, but you're no Jack Kirby."
Unfortunately, nobody is. No shame to not be Jack Kirby. Anyway, what would you like to hear us talk about Jack? We got some time here. You must have some question about Jack. You know.
I brought something to show people.
Oh, right, please show.
So we have a theme this year that we're working on, and we're hoping to develop it into another pop-up that we hope to have in New York and in LA. But we picked the title Jack Kirby's Cosmic Comics, and what we like to make big comics, as we've seen before. We made a huge 2001 treasury, and if you come to our booth, you'll see these excerpts of comics where we kind of take things like this. So you can look at the original art and then see the printed version. There's like a...
That's actually, those pages are bigger than the original art.
I think they are, yeah. So, you know, here's something where we actually were lucky enough to get a Silver Age Marvel pencil work than the original art and then the printed version.
That pencil page you got from me.
Oh, well, there we
Pencil
go.
page. And I used to show that to people, to show, you know, Coletta.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to, see, here's the scene. I'd like to point out the missing chair, the Coletta missing chair. So, the sad fate of the chair that got lost in Coletta's work. But we have a whole bunch. We have this one Thor piece, and then we have 3 others. We have New Gods, a 2001, and the Eternals, and it all showcases the wonderful work that Mike Royer does. So you get to see Jack's pencils, Mike's, you know, finished work on the original art and the printed version, and they're just really fun. So, you know, if you're here tomorrow, come to the booth and check that stuff out. It's really,
See,
really
I just
fun.
remembered I started to ask a random question. I didn't want to answer.
That's right.
Okay, I was going to ask you, what kind of reactions do you get from people? You're at the convention, there's a big sign, Jack Kirby. Tell us about the reactions people get.
People just, they get it. They're getting it more and more, that Jack, how incredible Jack was. That, you know, the work that we've done, that you've done, that we've all talking about Jack, that they are really understanding, you know, what an amazing creator he was. And that they know that he is around, you know, his stuff is all around us.
Do you find that people want to tell you what their favorite Jack Kirby work is?
Oh, yeah.
Or do you find that frequently it's the first thing they read?
Of course.
There's a lot of people who just think Commander was the greatest thing he ever did.
That's right.
And that's because they started reading Commander.
Well, it's funny when you're at your table and someone who's obviously 50 years old walks up and said, "God, when I was a kid, I just loved Devil Dinosaur." And I'm thinking, thank you for making me feel so old.
It's not old, Mike, it's important. Yeah, okay. So, tell people, what's the future of the museum?
Well, I mean, right now, the current state is that we've been doing a lot of scans, right? So we have like 4,500 scans of the original art and the pencil photocopies. And then the goal, you know, we want to keep doing that. We want to make that work available. It's not really available. It's more like a human interface. You ask us, and then we let you know. So that's an important project that we're working on. we want to have, we're planning to have a pop-up in New York. We want to have a pop-up in LA. It's just a matter of, pulling the resources together to make that happen. And after that, it's all about whether, how much support we can get to, find more real estate we have storage space and we have an archive filled with many things, but, to people, everybody wants us to have a space somewhere.
Yes.
Never
there.
Yes.
Okay. Has anybody found a question while I'm doing that? Yes, sir.
Jack Kirby obviously played a huge role in creating so many incredible characters. Do you know if there was one particular story or character that he just loved to illustrate?
The question was, do I know if there's one particular character or story that Jack loved to illustrate? Well, the first thing that I know about Jack is he loved everything he did. He would, if they had said to him, for the rest of your life, you're going to do nothing but draw westerns, he would have been fine. Or war stories. He didn't, he liked to draw what was commercial. I mean, that was, when you know about subject matter, he didn't have a preference for superheroes necessarily over science fiction or whatever the main genres he worked in. He was a little less happy about negative stuff, things about death. In fact, he had a couple of ugly phone conversations with Carmine Infantino in D.C. where he felt that Carmine's covers were getting too bleak and death-oriented, failure and weakness. And Carmine did not like the fact that he did covers that Jack Kirby did not like. If you asked Jack, if you pinned him down, what was your favorite story? When I first met him, it would have been a story he did in Boys Ranch called Mother Delilah. If you, a little later on, he would say The Pact, or occasionally The Death Wish of Terrible Turpin, which I think is the best. I think The Death Wish of Terrible Turpin is the best story he did for DC. That's my opinion. He would have, and if you said, oh, I really love The Glory Boat, he would have, yeah, listen to that. It's like, you can't love any one thing too much. And it is significant that he was mentioning stories he felt were really his. He didn't do with somebody else. He felt that he had done all or most of the work. I think Mother Delilah, I think he even inked that. But he really liked everything. And if you came up to Jack and told him, oh, I really thought the best thing you ever did was a couple of love stories in the back of, some of your comic, he would have been just as flattered as. He didn't have a lot of ego. It's interesting. Jack had a way of saying, I think I'm the best guy in the business. It didn't sound conceited. And even aside from the fact that he was the best guy in the business, he just but he had no animosity towards other artists. You cannot find Jack saying a bad thing about his competition. Yes, sir.
So some of the work that he did for DC that hasn't been published, like Soul Love or Dick Bats issue 2, I guess.
Yeah.
How much of that exists, and what are the odds of it ever seeing the light of day?
100%. It's out. Will be out in about 3 months.
Can you
Tomorrow.
stand on that?
Tomorrow is printing a book, which I have to write the forward for next week, where they're going to reprint the stuff that was done for DC. 2 issues, never published issues of Dick Bats, and Jeff did there's 2 black and whites that were published in the same format as Spirit World and In the Days of the Mob. The first one he did was a thing that was going to be called either Soul Love or Soul Romance. They never finalized the title. No, I got it backwards. First thing he did was going to be called True Divorce Cases. Jeff, he had a whole large project. This is too long a story, I'll tell the whole thing, but essentially they wanted to do fancy magazines in color with some photos and some real fancy advertising, something that would have looked a lot like the National Lampoon did at that time. He thought that was a wonderful package, and comics should have that better printing, that level of color and such. And DC kept cheapening the idea down and cheapening it down to look like bad issues of a creepy magazine. And so they wanted a romance thing. That was not one of his chosen topics, because and actually this is a case where Jack said to me one day, he said, why do you think romance comics are all failing? See, one of the reasons that Vince Coletta became Jack's inker at DC was that all those guys in that era had a powerful need to keep each other working. It was kind of understanding. If you work for the company and your book was canceled, they'd find you another book because your income depended on it. And these are all guys that can go through the depression. The most important thing in life is to provide for your family, keep a roof over your kids' heads. So Coletta had been the guy making all of these romance books. They were canceling them or making them frequent at that time. So Coletta was losing work and losing work and losing work. And so making him Jack Kirby's inker was a way to make Vince happy. It solved the problem of who else is going to do it, and it was simple. And also, Coletta was being paid the lowest rate. And they liked to balance the highest paid penciler and the lowest rate inker, and they could, which explains some of the people incur so on over the years. So anyway, Jack gave them a list of like 20 ideas for romance guy. He wrote out a list of this, this, and they picked one. But Jack would come to me and we were talking about this. I wanted to write romance comics. I kind of wanted to write romance comics. And Jack said, why do you think romance comics are failing these days? I said, because it's 1970 and romance is about stuff that you can't put in a comic book. It's in the 1950s, a romance comic could be about, oh, maybe if her hairstyle was different, I'd love her. And in 1970, it was about sex. I mean, relationships had gotten much more serious. Young people were having sex at an earlier age. It was out in the open more, and comic books weren't going to do that. So it didn't relate to anything that was currently romance. Anyway, they picked a thing called True Divorce Cases that Jack studied. And Jack did an issue of true divorce case stories. And again, this was a book he did not want to, he wanted to edit it and supervise other writers and artists. Called John Romita about drawing the story. He called Don Heck about drawing the story. Because he thought John Romita and Don Heck were the best drawers in the business, and Jack was oriented that way. A romance comic had to be full of really beautiful women. And DC said, well, you do the whole thing. And he did the whole issue of True Divorce Cases, and he handed it in, and DC said, we don't like this, we're not going to print it. But there was one story in there about a black couple. And they said, hey, maybe a whole book of romance with black people. They talked to a distributor. This is all going to be in the forward I'm going to write next week or so I don't know how I'm going to tell us about this. But essentially, they took the one story, the black couple that had been done for True Divorce Cases, and Jack drew the rest of the issue of soul love or soul romance. And then a distributor who specialized in the black areas, the black marketplaces, said, oh, that will never sell. And they killed the project. And there were a couple other factors. So this volume that Tomorrow's is bringing out has the two Dingbat stories. It's got all the material that can be found. There's a few pages still missing from the True Divorce Cases for solo books. There's your answer.
Makes me very happy to hear this.
Yeah. There will be a 4-page True Divorce story in this publication that I lettered and inked. And I got a nice compliment from John Morrow. He says, you still have it, Mike.
Yes, sir.
I think we're all pretty aware of the influence that Jack Kirby had on all forms of media going forward, how much his creativity affected everything else. But I'd be curious to know what you guys know about his input. And I mean, there are places where, like in Fantastic Four, he would take an Edward G. Robinson movie and an episode of Star Trek and mash them together and come up with something. But like, did he have any friends that were physicists or scientists or anything, or did he?
He read a lot of medical journals, scientific journals.
Well, Eco the Living Planet sounds just like James Lovelock and Lynn Margulies' Gaia